So I'm with Amy Franko, who's a sales strategist and an author who specializes in business-to-business sales. She works with technology companies, professional services companies. She's somebody who I have gotten to know over the last several months, primarily through her writing. She published a book a couple years ago called The Modern Seller, which I have enjoyed, very timely. She's also someone who is, in my view, a great keynote speaker. I've watched some of her videos, so I think you'll see some of that as we chat. But Amy, welcome.
Ned, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So what I thought we'd talk about, there's a thing that's happening to a lot of my banker friends, and it has to do with adapting to the new virtual reality. And you've written a lot about how people have to be agile in their approach. And these last months have challenged people, at least in working from home and learning some new skills. I'd like you to talk a little bit about virtual relationship building and virtual sales.
Yeah, so I have a client who just phrased this so well, and I borrow his phrase from time to time, and he's a chief marketing officer at a professional services firm, and he said, he's like, our go-to moves are gone, and we need to figure out some new moves. So when it comes to business development, when it comes to relationship building, so we are all figuring out some new moves in adapting to virtual relationship building. And if I like to follow the trends and just to stay up and educated on trends. And there are two that I think, no matter what industry you're in, are worth paying attention to. And the first trend is just that our clients and our prospective clients, they are in the midst of having to really completely transform their businesses. Some industries more than others, but that's a common thread amongst all of our clients. And then the second one, which is very specific to what you just talked about with relationship building, is that business development sales is going to be largely virtual. From my perspective, well into the first half of 2021 and maybe even longer, just depending. So that means for all of us, we have to find new ways to adapt, and we need to find new ways to develop relationships, because our customers, our clients, they have lifted their heads up out of the sand, and they're saying, okay, we've got to move forward. We have to move forward and make our way in this new normal. So when you're working with your clients, figuring out those ways to build relationships with them virtually. I know one of the things that we had talked about before hitting record here was the use of video, and that is going to be here. I'm glad that it's here, and it's going to be here. It's going to be a tool in your toolkit long after we are back to some semblance of normal.
So let me just ask that question, because it's a given you have to learn how to use the tools. And somebody described it to me as like TQ. You got to have some sort of technical quotient.
Oh, right? I like that.
TQ. But beyond that, what are some things that a virtual salesperson has to be able to do in the context of today's world?
Yeah, so I love that idea of TQ. So I think that's a table stake, TQ, right? And you have to figure out the technology aspects of all of that. Right. But there is the content of the conversations that you have. And I'm working with a lot of clients right now to master the virtual business development conversation. So having to have entire sales conversations and take their entire sales process virtually. So when you're used to being across the table from someone having a sales conversation, I actually teach a framework that helps sellers actually conduct their sales conversations entirely virtually. So you have to master process virtually, you have to master the content of conversations virtually, and you have to be able to move things forward virtually. You have to create momentum and keep things moving forward. That's aside from the technology understanding.
So I get people that ask me, for example, in initial meetings with a prospect, how do you build rapport virtually?
Yeah, well, I think using video is one way that I use to build rapport continually. So if I'm in a place, or that other person is in a place to turn on the video camera, I definitely do that. But long before we had video cameras, we were having these conversations on the phone as
Mm-hmm.
well. So there's the eye contact aspect of video. There is the voice and the engagement aspects of it. If phone call, whatever that happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to think about, how would I do this personally? How do I do this live? And then how can I adapt it to a virtual environment? So I am going to look for ways to add business value.
Mm-hmm.
That does not change.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to look for ways to hopefully create a little bit more of a personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing that I've also seen with everything going on is barriers are maybe down a little bit because people are working out of their home offices. So you might, the dog barking in the background, or the child that you are working with, you're having to help them with homeschooling and things like that.
Yeah.
I think people are a little bit more open to some of the more personal sides of things that maybe they weren't before all of this happened.
I have found that, Amy, and one of the things that's been interesting, maybe because I'm consciously taking the time to get to know people better. And that seems to be a way to move into conversation. I've learned things about my clients that I never knew. I learned that, their daughter is a nurse in a Long Island hospital dealing with some of the problems of our society. Or I learned that, one of their passions is a volunteer organization that delivers meals. You learn stuff if you take the time. And I guess one of the last things I'd be curious about, because you talk about preparing for the conversation. I think in the virtual world, preparing is even more important because you have to think about some of these things that used to be kind of natural or intuitive.
Yeah, so if you were used to having let's say you had an hour for a meeting in person, or you were going to go to lunch with someone, I'm seeing conversations become shorter and much more focused. You can still learn the personal things about someone, but that hour-long conversation might now be 30 minutes, or sometimes it's even shorter because people are on video and in these tools all day, every day right now. So there's definitely some fatigue going on. So to your point, the preparation for conversations we have to put more prep into it and really think about the outcome of the conversation, and they're shorter.
Yeah, great advice. And again, I think people should follow you, follow your blog, link in with you, and also buy The Modern Seller, because I think those are all great resources. So Amy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.